Sometime around the end of his dictatorship, or beginning of his consulship, Sulla became involved in the political drama surrounding another kingdom. Like Rome, Egypt had been in a constant state of civil war for a number of decades. Brother fought brother for Egypt's throne, and sister wives plotted against husbands for the sake of their own power. Because Sulla wanted a pro-Roman king on Egypt's throne, he demanded Egypt's queen, Berenike III, marry her cousin, Ptolemy Alexander II. Berenike, who had served as co-regent during the reign of her father, had continued to reign alone after his death in late 81 BC. What Berenike did not know was that her uncle, providing he had no son to claim the throne, had willed Egypt to Rome during his tenure as king of Egypt. And he did have a son. But Berenike's father, when he succeeded her uncle, had failed to create a new will which nullified that of her uncle. Berenike's reign was illegal. Sulla pointed out that, if the kingdom of Egypt didn't belong to Ptolemy Alexander, then it belonged to Rome, and he had the bequest to prove it. If Berenike wanted to remain queen, her only option was to marry the rightful heir. Otherwise, Rome had every legal right to begin the annexation of Egypt. Ptolemy Alexander, however, proved more unpredictable than Sulla anticipated. Summoning her cousin from Cyprus, Berenike, in accordance with Rome's demand, married him, and was murdered by her new husband only a few days after their wedding. The outraged people of Egypt, who loved Berenike, rioted and, on April 22 of the 80 BC year, they cornered Egypt's new king in Alexandria's gymnasium, and killed him with their bare hands. But, Berenike's late father had also sired 2 bastards with his Greek mistress. Living on the island of Kos, these young men, both named Ptolemy, had been kidnapped 8 years earlier by Mithridates of Pontus, during his invasion of Turkey. Mithridates had taken the bastard sons of Egypt's king to keep Egypt from aiding Rome against him. By 80 BC, both these young men still lived as hostages at the court of Mithridates but, with no king or queen, the Egyptian people now demanded their return. It was most likely due to pressure from Sulla that Mithridates finally released his hostages, allowing them to go free from Pontus. The elder, Ptolemy Auletes, or Flautist, was crowned king of Egypt, and his Ptolemy brother was crowned king of Cyprus. Egypt was finally settled. Sulla had manipulated the placement of 2 kings who, because they were illegitimate, would not have the authority with the Egyptian people to overplay their hands. And, because Rome had secured their release from Mithridates, both kings would also remain in Rome's debt. As bastards, Sulla knew there would be plenty to challenge their rule, forcing them to constantly seek Rome's help. The more the flute-playing king asked of Rome, the more pliable he would be to Roman interests in Egypt. And Rome would always be interested in Egypt's abundant grain supply. As Sulla politically maneuvered Egypt into a relationship with long-term financial benefits for Rome, he also had the double duty of performing a traditional and sacred religious ceremony which kept Rome's spiritual life healthy. Chosen to host the feast for the cult of Hercules Invictus, Sulla was tasked with ensuring every legal and spiritual detail surrounding Hercules' sacrifice was observed. The cult of Hercules Invictus, or Hercules Unconquered, was a man's-only celebration. Just as men were forbidden access to the festival of the Bona Dea, women were forbidden access to the cult of Hercules Invictus. As the host, Sulla was forced to undergo many stringent sanctification rituals which purified him, and kept him holy during the period surrounding the feast. Though today we do not know what most of these purification rituals entailed, they were legally enforced to make sure the host was clean so that Hercules Invictus would not reject the sacrifice, withdrawing his blessings from Rome. During this same time, Sulla's wife, Dalmatica, fell mortally ill. Because her illness was deemed as a rotting from the inside, Dalmatica was considered unclean. Sulla was forbidden, by religious law, to see her, be near her, or be attached to her in any way. So stringent were the laws surrounding Sulla's sacrifice and purification, that during his sanctification period, he was legally forced to divorce Dalmatica, and have her removed from his home. While lying on her deathbed, Dalmatica was carried out of the house, away from the 6-year-old twins she had borne Sulla, given a bill of divorce, and taken to some other location, possibly a temple, to be made comfortable. There, Dalmatica died before the end of Sulla's sanctification period and his legal ability to return to her. Having divorced her only for the sake of religious law, and the fear of offending Hercules, an angry Sulla broke his own law limiting the expense one could spend on a funeral or banquet. He personally organized a funeral for Dalmatica that was so opulent, it bordered on palatial. Then, Sulla spent the next weeks drowning his sorrow and pain in things like strong wine, opium, and possibly even sarpa salpa, a fish of the Mediterranean known to cause visions and hallucinations. Though we do not know if it happened before or after the death of Dalmatica, but Sulla's stepdaughter, Aemilia Scora, also died. This daughter of Dalmatica and former house speaker, Marcus Aemilius Scaurus, had only recently married Pompeius Magnus, while carrying the baby of her divorced first husband. Unfortunately, neither Aemilia Scora nor the baby survived the trauma of childbirth. The loss of his stepdaughter also meant that Pompeius Magnus was no longer bound to Sulla. Despite all the tragedy surrounding Sulla's personal life, he found another solution to keep Pompeius loyal to him. Mucia Tertia, the daughter of the Pontifex Maximus who had been brutally assassinated on the steps of Vesta's temple, was in need of a new husband. Because it was her late husband, Marius the Younger, who had ordered her father's death, it seemed unlikely that Mucia would remain loyal to the party that had murdered her father. The fact her father died for the conservative cause may have been the only reason Sulla left her unmolested by the ravages of his proscriptions, her marriage to Marius the Younger notwithstanding. That, however, did not mean Mucia Tertia didn't owe Sulla. We do not know if she did so willingly, or because Sulla held all the power and she, as a Marian widow, feared homelessness, but Mucia Tertia agreed to marry the handsome and charismatic Pompeius Magnus, whose star had skyrocketed under Sulla's ignition. One evening, towards the end of his 80 BC consular term, needing a night off, Sulla attended the theatre. A relative of Dalmatica, the retired Vestal Virgin, Metella Bellarica, also attended with relatives she had invited. These relatives, Messala Niger, and his sister, Valeria Messala, sat behind Sulla. Valeria, a young and alert divorcee, reached out and plucked a loose thread from Sulla's toga. When he noticed and turned around, she quickly apologized, explaining that she only took the thread because she hoped it might grant her some of Sulla's famous luck. Charmed by her explanation and personality, Sulla spent the rest of the night turning around to look at her, while simultaneously quizzing his other friends about who she was. In desperate need of a mother for his 6-year-old twins, who had not only lost their mother, but their elder sister as well, Sulla asked for Valeria's hand in marriage. The young and vivacious woman, probably encouraged by her family, agreed, and married Sulla near the end of his 80 BC term. Upon laying down the office of consul, Sulla elected to forego governance of the province which had been assigned to him, and announced he would retire from public life altogether. His health was failing, and Sulla wanted time to write his memoirs for posterity before reaching the end of his life. Taking his new wife, his young twins, and to everyone's surprise, an actor named Metrobius, with whom Sulla had shared a secret relationship for the majority of his public life, he left the city of Rome. In the coastal town of Puteoli, Sulla spent his days writing, and during the nights he reveled in the debauchery, wine, and sexual gratifications which his very public political career had denied him. As a reward for fixing Rome's broken government, Sulla decided that whatever time now remained to him, he would spend it pleasing himself.